Hello world! Grab yourself an ice cream, friends, because it's time yet again to talk about my favourite misunderstood, malevolent, mechanical mistress, Ash, and how Pathfinder's quest confirms her true identity as the similarly sinister scientist, Dr. Reid. Now, there's plenty more to be discussed concerning the new lawbook, some pretty huge elements of which I will have to spoil to explain this evidence, but I will try and keep that until the end, and to a minimum, so that you can at least understand why Ash is Dr. Reid, before I give more actual context of why that's important. So, if you want to know all the reasons behind why this theory exists in the first place, because there's a lot of them, you can check out my initial video on why Ash is Dr. Reid, linked in the top corner, which covers all the evidence we had up until the beginning of Season 7. More evidence dropped literally the day after I published that video, which makes it pretty sus how some other creators missed that particular detail even months later. So, we'll quickly cover how Season 7 further supports the theory before we dive into what we learned from Pathfinder's quest. As Family Portrait Chapter 2 further linked Dr. Reid to Ash through a conversation between Charisse Shea and her husband, Darion. First, Darion confirms that Ash's calls of Duardo, Darion had been aimed at him and Duardo Silva in their childhood as they terrorized Peck Labs. Charisse then adds further context for this as she reveals that the woman in charge of Peck Labs at the time was called Reeves, Reid, or something, which is obviously purposely left vague so as to confirm our suspicions while not explicitly stating it as fact. And to be honest, it'd be kind of boring if they had just said it there and then, right? Although, the further interesting point to actually take from this encounter is that, if true, it means that Dr. Reid would have returned to Peck Labs around when Olympus reopened as a luxury vacation spot, based on the approximate ages of the Shays and the general timeline following Olympus's first evacuation. Just something to bear in mind for now. Next then, in Season 7, was the collection of Horizon teasers that could be found across Olympus, which culminated in her receiving a message from her future self in the past that confirms that she will eventually achieve time travel so as to return to her son in what is known as a causal loop. The direct link to Ash here is the Alpha, Beta, Delta, and Gamma gates that she referenced in the Lost Tomb. The first three of which correspond to codes needed to unlock the 3 messages sent from Newton Summers to his mother, one of which even name-checks Dr. Reid, with Newton likely being the source of her hatred of children. The final code, Gamma Gates 5 across 5 down, was then able to reroute the Phase Runner to Horizon's apartment, which itself had been mysteriously relocated to the Bonsai Plaza from by Hammond Labs since her return to Olympus and after Hammond had taken a series of codes from Ash's memories. Again, just something to bear in mind for the future. And so, now we reach Pathfinder's quest. And before we go into the proper context for Ash being Dr. Reid, I'm just going to cover her other lines from the Lost Tomb that the book confirms as being memories of Dr. Reid. So, a simple one to start. Just as
X equals the temperature of the negative space, not the specimen itself,
is a quote attributed to Lillian Peck, founder of Olympus, the statement
all roads ultimately to Branthium
is in fact spoken by another focal Olympian scientist with a definite connection to Dr. Reid. This line itself confirmed to have been spoken in her presence. Then, even more damning than that,
Failsafe, failsafe, who's got the failsafe,
is actually another memory of a direct quote from Dr. Reid herself. And before I explain,
who doesn't like ice cream? Every kid likes ice cream.
I will have to give proper spoiler warnings. I would strongly recommend that anyone planning to actually read the book leaves this here, as Pathfinder's quest is meant to be appreciated as a story experience, not just like a lore encyclopedia, and it's well worth that ride when you actually engage with it in that way. But so, for anyone who's read it and wants some kind of confirmation, or is unfortunately unable to get hold of the book, or is just far too thirsty for that sweet, sweet lore, here we go. Who doesn't like ice cream? "Every kid likes ice cream" are Pathfinder's first words, showing too strong a resonance with the sweet tooth of one of his many creators, and with this moment observed by all 8 of them, including, of course, Dr. Ashleigh Reid. And if that wasn't enough for anyone, "all roads lead to Branthium" was also first said by one of this elite group of scientists, Professor Millie Delgado. But I will be leaving the full context of why that is said for another video on Pathfinder's creators, the reason behind his creation, and the fallout of that situation. Again, this video is just really to prove that Ash is Dr. Reid, but therefore, it should now actually be noted that she's already told us as much, all the way back in Season 6, with her farewell letter to Pathfinder. "You are so preoccupied with this creator of yours, you fail to see what you've created yourself. Takes on far more meaning when you consider that Ash has now remembered that she is one of Pathfinder's creators, and with the idea that she doesn't want Pathfinder to reawaken that past. I'm not going to say why she would feel that way exactly here, you can likely assume as much given her track record of betrayal, but the idea is at least given further weight through her letter's closing point of, "I was right, I'm not your friend," as this final line is not only replying to Path's recent assertion that Ash is his friend, but it's actually also agreeing with a past statement from Pathfinder to Dr. Reid, where he claimed that she most certainly is not. You could even argue that, even earlier in the first ship, Rampart's line of "maybe we were just in time" bears distinct parallels to the last words of researcher Aleki, "maybe you were right on time." And it is this similarity that then caused Ash's breakdown, restored her memories, and is perhaps even why certain characters popped particularly into her mind. And so, to segue away mysteriously from that, Wraith's chapter in Pathfinder's lorebook also seems to suggest that Ash's head was thrown into the Ark at the end of the Battle of Typhon, as Wraith seems to tie her death in this world to her separation across another, which doesn't really prove anything to do with Dr. Reid, just seems to be like a neat little detail that helps us solidify further ideas about the timeline. Revenant's chapter then also does point out that a simulacrum seemingly needs to die as a human before the transfer process, or at least that it doesn't remove the possibility of transferring and becoming a simulacrum. And well, with that, I can't really say any more, because there we're getting into Pathfinder's creation, the reasoning behind it, what happened to his creators, why he forgot them, and why he and Ash are not friends. That story also ties into a much grander one that has already hugely affected the Outlands as a whole, but also suggests further machinations and motivations behind Dr. Ashleigh Reid that will also likely lead us into the future. So do yourself a favour and go check out the book for yourself if you can. Give it its time and let me know your perspective below. For that's all from me for today. I hope you now realise that Ash is in fact Dr. Reid, as with so much foreshadowing behind her, Respawn would likely just be damaging their own character writing to go against it, especially if there is no proper reason behind such a bamboozle. Ash being Dr. Reid actually allows her plenty of story opportunities involving various existing legends, as we're all quite familiar with at least one of Pathfinder's other creators and their lineage, so there is quite a lot to look forward to with this, even if we can't see it just yet. So, thank you for staying with me as I've tried really hard not to spoil more than I actually came here for. I've been Euclidean Vision, the emotional support. Take care of yourselves out there, teammates, and may the glorious light of Beskil shine within you. The path does not end here.